Chapter 5, Transforming Your Beliefs. Napoleon Hill says, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Some people say you can achieve anything you imagine, and I believe you can achieve a lot of things that you can imagine. But if you don't believe it's possible, you won't. Napoleon Hill said, whatever the mind can conceive and believe. Now, obviously, there's exceptions. I don't think I'm going to get drafted to the NBA anytime soon. I'm sorry if this is the first you're hearing this. You know what I mean. You have to believe it's possible in order to achieve it. Obviously, I did not believe that I could attract the husband of my dreams for a very, very long time. So this is how I went about changing and reframing those ugly beliefs I once had about myself and men, and developed new beliefs that real love was possible and I deserved to have someone love me unconditionally forever. Actually, there is one condition. If he cheats on me, I'll throw him off a cliff and make it look like an accident. Just kidding. Okay, back to changing those beliefs. Part 1. So there's a couple parts. First one is to create a mantra. And you might think mantras are weird. That's fine. But the definition of create, as I wanted to point out, 1, bring something into existence. And number 2, cause something to happen with one's actions. So I love creating a mantra because the mind learns by repetition. And I recommend creating one just for yourself and repeating it as many times throughout the day because it turns your thoughts away from the quote fact that you can't see physical evidence of your soulmate arriving. And you repeatedly practice turning your thoughts to the reality you're in the process of creating. So my mantra was, thank you, God, for sending me my soulmate. That was the picture these words helped me hold in my mind. So God was sending my person to me in present time. My soulmate was on his way. God had already picked him out for me, and he was working his way to me. He was already mine, but you choose the language you prefer. You can say, thank you, Jesus, universe, spirit, Gus for short. God, universe, spirit. I had a friend who said, Gus is driving my bus. I love that. You can say, for sending me my soulmate, my husband, my partner, my Leo the lion. I wrote my mantra down in my journal every single morning, and I repeated it in my mind dozens of times every day for 17 months. I didn't do this exercise during the first 6 or 7 years I was single. I didn't attract the love of my life until I followed these strategies that help keep my mind focused on the end game that I was working toward, a badass husband. The key ingredient is this new mantra. Now, it can't be in the future. If you hope for something to happen in the future, it'll always be in the future. So thank you for sending him to me. Now, he's yours already. There is some plan in this madness that we don't understand, and a higher power puts people into our lives at the right time. And just because you don't know who your soulmate is yet, doesn't mean he's not out there. He could be at the Starbucks right down the street from you right now. You don't get to decide when you meet, but you can decide when and how to acknowledge your beliefs that don't serve you and work towards creating new ones that will draw your soulmate to you. Willa Cather, one of my favorite authors, says, when there is great love, there are always miracles. I love her so much. Have you read any of her books? Willa is also my mom's name. And so Willa Cather is the only other person I'd ever heard of that had my mom's name until my childhood friend, Meredith, named her daughter Willa a few years ago, which I was thrilled. Where there is great love, there are always miracles. I feel like we're part of something special when we believe in miracles, because why not? Doesn't it feel fun to conspire with the universe and believe that great love is on its way to you and you have a small part in this miracle? I do. I would repeat the mantra as you choose as many times as possible daily. Every morning when you wake up, think, thank you for sending my soulmate. When you're making your coffee, I would say, thank you, God, for sending me my soulmate. When I would drop off the kids at school, I would say, thank you, God, for sending me my soulmate. Especially after a date that sucked and you come home thinking, fuck men, fuck the world, fuck everyone. I'm just going to stay single for the rest of my life. Just like I did many times. Repeat to yourself, thank you, God, for sending my soulmate. And if you met someone who wasn't your soulmate, You now know he's not the one. He was meant to teach you something. So as soon as you get home, say, thank you, God, for sending me my soulmate. The more you visualize and verbalize that your soulmate has already been chosen for you, he's already on his way, the more you believe it, then the closer you get and the better you feel. Try it. I thanked God every night before I went to sleep for sending my soulmate. There was a speaker at this Christian church I attended for a while that said, when you get down on your knees, it magnifies the power of prayer. When I was a kid, we always got on our knees as a family every night. We'd kneel down in a circle and pray every night. That was normal for me. But as an adult, I'd kind of stopped getting on my knees. So I thought, well, sure, why not? So I did. I got down on my knees. I prayed on my knees every single night and said, thank you, God, for sending me my soulmate. But Karen, mantras are weird and I don't want to pray on my knees. Okay, you don't have to use a mantra. You certainly don't need to use any of my exact words. It's just a strategy to help solidify the new belief that you're working toward transforming and you're working towards believing. So just choose the one you struggle with the most and reframe it into the positive. Sometimes the things that we resist the most are what we need the most. Okay, part 2 is the actual transformation of beliefs. In order to change your beliefs into the ones that serve you, identify what you currently believe. Awareness is always the first step to learning. So if you've never seen anyone ride a bike, why would you want to ride a bike? You only wanted to learn because you saw someone ride a bike. That's awareness. Sometimes we don't realize what we believe, and we don't realize what we tell ourselves constantly about ourselves or about men or about relationships. Our thoughts and words are so familiar to us and they're so habitual that we don't even realize what they are. Again, familiar doesn't mean forever. Just because it's familiar to you doesn't mean you can't change it. I had dozens of negative beliefs about myself and about men and relationships. So hopefully examples from my brain will help you identify what you may believe now and how you currently feel about relationships. And then you can determine the new empowering beliefs that will serve you and your mission to attract the relationship that you want and you deserve. Remember, Henry Ford, he said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. That's why beliefs are so crucial. If you believe no one will marry you because you're raising 2 kids alone, just like I did, you're right. If you feel no one will love you because your butt's too big, just like I used to, you're right. If you think there are no successful, kind, fun, single men like I used to believe for a long time, then you're right. Ed Milet says you will always get what you're deeply convinced of. That's your beliefs. They may just be in your subconscious and you may not be conscious of them. And that's why it's so important to heal from the past, change and resolve and release those limiting beliefs that just aren't true. But Karen, my ex-husband sucks and men are the worst. Okay, perfect. That's a great place to start, actually. When I make jokes, it's just because you gotta laugh or you're just gonna go crazy. And B, because I've been there. All right, so I've told you how months or years I talked about what a, quote, bad husband my ex-husband was. And then I remember how I felt hanging on to that so tightly that I was only crushing myself. Holding on to anger and resentment didn't do anything. It didn't change anything except for keep me from feeling joy and appreciating the good years we had together. So what is the truth? The truth about anyone you've been with is that you got together because you loved each other at one point. Your relationship slowly dissolved for probably thousands of reasons, and it was good at the beginning until it wasn't. Just examine how powerful this is. One belief is, my ex-husband sucks, and when you sit with that belief, really focus on it, like replaying all the past events that pissed you off, all the things that disappointed you, and all the reasons. You can write them all out on a piece of paper and really hold on to that. How does that make you feel? How does that help you create joy and love in your life right now? How's that helping you? Because the first step in learning anything, it's just awareness. We can't transform our beliefs until we know what they are. What thoughts are constantly popping up in that beautiful brain of yours? So let's get them on paper. I've jotted several down that came to mind that I've had myself in the past, or I've heard my clients say. So I'm going to give you some examples and see which ones kind of give you a little bit of a nudge, or like present like a little bit of a feeling, or you kind of resonate with something right now. Just so you have the awareness of things that you may believe right now. Maybe something like, I won't be able to have a relationship until the kids go to college, or I'll find someone after I lose 10 pounds, or I can't have wild, passionate sex after 60, or I'm happy alone, or men only want me for sex. Men only want to date me because no one else will go out with them. Men only want to date me because I make them look good. If I get a boob job and liposuction, someone will want to marry me. I'm too old to find young. I'm too old to find love. I'm too young to find love. No one will want to marry me because I have debt. So if you're not sure about your negative beliefs, try this. Dean Graziosi, well-known, brilliant success coach, business owner, entrepreneur, author, all the things. He says, replace your but. So if you're not sure, start by, well, I would get married, but what is your brain saying? But what? Or I would have a boyfriend, but they're all liars, or they all cheat, or what comes after that? Or I would have a husband right now, but what comes after that in your mind? Fill in the blanks. Answer those questions. That's how you can identify the beliefs that you have now about men. Just write them down. So write them down if you feel this is the, quote, reason why you're single. Like, all men are liars. All men leave me. All men are jerks. Every man is immature. Men only want younger women. Men suck. Men are the worst. I hate everyone. My personal favorite. So if you believe that all men are the worst, you'll look for it repeatedly. You will find, quote, evidence that makes it true. So closing off all opportunities for incredible men to come into your life. You've already shut them out just with your thoughts. Let me repeat that. If you believe that all men are the worst, you will look for evidence of that belief repeatedly, and you will find it repeatedly. Every man you attract will be the worst. Do you know that feeling after you buy a new car and it seems like every other car on the road is exactly the same as yours? Those cars were there the whole time, but you weren't focused on like blue Honda Pilot, like I used to have, until you bought one. You started driving around in said blue Honda Pilot. All of a sudden, every car on the road is a blue Honda Pilot. You see them everywhere. You know that feeling? It's the same thing for all your beliefs. It's the same for your beliefs about men. If you look for assholes, you'll find assholes all over the place. That belief keeps you from getting what you want, and it's stealing your joy. But you just start with being aware of it. There's no good or bad, wrong, right. There's nothing wrong with them. Just be aware of what you currently believe. But Karen, what happens if we look for awesome studs who want an awesome wife? I wonder. Did you write down what you currently believe yet? Let's just get them on paper. I think it really helps you, to transform that old beliefs that are stuck in there that you may not be aware of, and so that we can reframe those and then transform. Well, you need to know what we're transforming. It's really helpful. And when you're transforming and releasing those old beliefs, it helps you get closer to your goal. But when you're gripping tight on the beliefs that you have evidence of in the past, someone's wronged you, cheated on you, lied to you, they're staying there. That keeps you further away from the goal. That doesn't get you closer to attracting them. So we want to release those. And I just take a moment to just be grateful for the awareness of your current beliefs. Really, just congratulate yourself for a second. I've acknowledged things. I'm learning something. Like, it's a good thing. You can only transform after you become aware of the things that you want to change. And that means you've already made a change. You're winning already. You've already made a step forward. And perhaps your beliefs were created from your own personal experience with teachers you were never meant to be with long term, but who were put in your life for maybe other reasons. Maybe one of the reasons you met was just to meet someone else from their circle, or ended up being a friend, or every relationship was perfect for you at the time. And every relationship is a gift, romantic or not. We don't always realize the gifts of our past relationships until much later, if ever. And that's sad, because why don't we realize what the gifts were? Because every relationship allows you the opportunity to either be angry or to learn. And you get to choose. Perhaps your negative beliefs, which are based on past experiences, were created from a relationship that just didn't turn out the way you wanted. You know, I've already said I'm a recovering control freak, and I sometimes struggle when things don't go as I planned in my brain. And that's nothing except for just a familiar thought. It's a knee-jerk feeling. That's a neural pathway that's already had lots of traffic in my brain. But just because it's familiar doesn't mean it's forever. Just because we have a current pathway or to familiar thoughts, that doesn't mean they're true. As they say, we plan, God laughs. Your current beliefs are your story from the past. Your current beliefs were conceived and written in the previous chapter of your life. Everything up until today that has already happened in your life was in a previous chapter. The previous chapter has ended, and you can start a brand new chapter right now. But Karen, I don't want that chapter to end. Okay. Maybe you're not the one that initiated the breakup. Maybe your husband passed away, and my heart breaks alongside anyone whose heart is broken. And I truly am sorry. And it really does hurt. And you do have to grieve. And you can just remind yourself that you have lived through every adversity, every challenge, and every heartbreak you've had up until this day. You have survived all of them, including abuse, divorce, breakup, all of it. So now I would ask yourself, what is it that you really want? You want a beautiful relationship with a man who cherishes you and serves you, who gets you and your weirdness, and only wants to be with you. Wanting someone to cherish you, support you, and love you exactly the way you are doesn't diminish any of the beautiful parts of your past relationships. There's room for all of it. But you can't attract what you want until you reframe the past instead of holding on to it with tight fists. Many times throughout this journey, life will finish a chapter for us, even when we didn't want it to. And all transitions are challenging. A child goes off to college, or you have a new baby, you lose a job, and you can also decide to take over as lead author of your own story and decide to complete a chapter right now. Today even. Why not? I could stop writing this chapter right now. There's no rules about how many chapters my book has to have or how many sentences per chapter. I could make this entire book one chapter if I wanted to, but it might be frowned upon. The point is, I'm the author and I get to decide. It's the same thing with the chapters in your own life. You are the author. You can choose anytime that your current chapter is over and a new one begins. In this new chapter, you don't have to believe the stories you told yourself before. You can appreciate all the good, all of the memories, all of the lessons from all of the past chapters without staying in that chapter. It just takes practice. And I also put my new beliefs, affirmations, on my phone. And I also read those daily. I heard someone say, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was, or I would give them credit, that listening to your affirmations in your own voice helps strengthen your new belief. So I recorded them in my voice memos and played them back to myself while I was driving around. This is an unknown quote that I love. Life is like a book. Some chapters are sad, some are happy, and some are exciting. But if you never turn the page, you will never know what the next chapter has in store for you. Once you write down your current beliefs, find all the instances that prove those beliefs are not actually true anymore. If you believe that every good man has already made it, if you believe every good man is already married, find anything displaying that those beliefs are false and the opposite is true. Only half of the male population is married, so that means half of them are single. And every day, hundreds of couples break up and marriages dissolve. And the number of single men and women changes every 5 seconds. People get together and break up all day, every day. If it's true that good people are married right now, and if it's also a fact that 50% of all marriages end in divorce, then it's also true that half of all married people will be single at some point again. I'm not saying these are, quote, good things. It's just reality. But we can use reality to dispel anything that you're having a hard time releasing. So if your current beliefs are just that inner bitch stealing your joy, tell her to shut up. Make sure you prove that she's a liar. You believe every man is unfaithful. Find anyone in your current reality who displays the opposite truth and write it down. You know faithful people who haven't been married their entire lives. Before they were married, they were faithful to their girlfriends, and they're faithful now. They wouldn't dream on cheating on their spouses. You personally know people in committed relationships who's never been unfaithful and would never dream of it. So that belief from your past and your specific experience is not necessarily true. It is just true for that one person. But it's not universally true. This is where we get caught. We have an experience, that person did X, and so we believe that all people do X. We attach that to a universal truth. That's not true. When you write down lists of every wonderful, loving person you know, you'll begin to realize and start to believe there are many others, millions of others that you may not know yet who are just as kind, just as loving, and one person is perfect for you. One person right now is, quote, out there wishing he was with someone just like you. Someone out there is praying to meet someone just like you. And it's not someone like you. He's praying to meet you. Specifically, when you do these things and these exercises, these things daily, you can start building new muscles and creating new neurological pathways. You'll always find what you actively seek. But our current beliefs are not a life sentence. Doing these exercises just repeatedly helped me release the old limiting beliefs from my past. The mind learns by repetition. So you can develop new beliefs that serve you and create more joy in your life just by writing these exercises and reading them regularly. Just sitting quietly with a journal and a pen every day helps you stay in the moment. And at the same time, visualize and dream about what I wanted to create in the future. Just sitting quietly with a journal and a pen every day helped me stay in the moment, and at the same time, visualize and dream about what I wanted to create and what I was creating. The more time I spent writing, reading, and editing my soulmate list and visualizing my future relationship, the more I believed that it was possible. The old negative, limiting beliefs will soon dissolve if your desire is strong enough and if you just keep practicing. Robert Frost says, the best way out is through. I couldn't agree more. The only way to arrive at your desired outcome is by putting in time and effort and just practicing and being curious. It's exactly like developing any other muscle. You have to lift the weights today and the next day and the next day after that, and you won't see any difference at the end of the week. But you'll definitely see some differences at the end of 30 days. And most definitely if you did that every day for 90 days. It's just only if you practice every day for 90 days. It's just all about consistency. My client asked me the other day, how long will it take? And my response was, well, depends on how often you practice. How long does it take to learn the guitar? Well, if you practice guitar once a week for 10 minutes, you'll never be amazing. Sorry. If you practice for an hour every day for a year, you'll officially be a guitar player. It might be fun to turn this into like more of a game, like call your belief a theory and maybe act as though you're a detective and you've been handed this theory and it has nothing to do with you. Just completely detached from that belief, from the belief itself. It's someone else's. Pretend it's someone else's. And someone came to you and said, you're too old to find love, or you're too big to find love, or men are liars. It's the truth. It's a fact. Then you can have fun with it. And you can pretend like your mission is to find the facts that disprove this theory. The one from the old you or from the old chapter, or pretend it's someone else's. That theory is no longer serving you. So get going on your mission. Find the facts that disprove those old stale theories and write them all down. Write down the evidence because it helps you solidify it in your mind. But Karen, all men are liars because my ex-husband was a liar. Okay, I get it. Your ex-husband lied. I'm sorry, he doesn't have integrity. So it's unfortunate that he doesn't embody that particular virtue. That one's very important to me too. So what you're really saying is, here comes the reframe, that honesty is a virtue that is important to you. And what you're really saying is that your soulmate has integrity, right? You see how I flipped that? That's reframing. The past does not determine your future, loves, okay? Whatever happened in the past does not determine the future. And I'm sure integrity is already on your list. And on now, of course, you're constantly working on staying true to your word every day so that you demonstrate your integrity as often as possible, right? Excellent. Good job, kids. Just kidding. When that thought, for the example, all men are liars, appears in your brain, just pause. Because I had the experience where a person lied to me. Does that actually mean that 0 people have integrity? We can all make these small shifts throughout the day. That thought is no longer welcome. It's no longer valid. It's just something that you used to believe. And you can ask it to leave and then think about all the people you know who are true to their word. Give yourself a little reminder that you're changing your beliefs because you are. You're currently, actively, right now, in the present, attracting an awesome husband who's honest. Doesn't that feel better? Okay, part 3, learning the lessons. This is a quote by Bridget Nicole. Sometimes in life, your situation will keep repeating itself until you learn your lesson. Okay, what's the definition of a lesson? 1, a thing learned or to be learned by a student. Or number 2, a thing learned by experience. I used to focus in the past and I would try to figure out other people's behavior. I wasted way too much time and energy and mental gymnastics trying to understand things that I just didn't understand. Focusing on the why somebody did what they did or didn't do something that they didn't do or something that I wanted them to do. I just didn't understand why, like, a teacher, for instance, wouldn't call me back or, gosh, I thought, oh man, we had such a good time. I just thought it was so confusing. I didn't understand why someone didn't do what he said he was going to do, whatever it was. They said, I'm going to send you a picture or schedule a next date or call or whatever action he said he was going to do. And then when they don't, I'd be like, man, that's so frustrating. Why is that? But it's because I'm a constant learner and seeker and researcher. I've always wanted to know why things were the way that they were. I just wanted them to tell me, really, when it comes down to. Or Dane Cook reference again. I want to know or I want a divorce. If you haven't seen that, you got to see it. It's hilarious. I think it's like 30 years old now. It isn't my nature to seek answers to anything I don't know. Have you seen the movie The Accountant? Another great movie. It's Ben Affleck. He plays an accountant with autism. He really doesn't talk very much and he doesn't have a filter. So when he found the crimes that he was hired to find, Anna Kendrick, the girl that starred with him, said, why would he do that? She was talking about the thief, to which Ben replied, I have a hard time determining why people do what they do. Isn't that so smart? Now I just work on adopting this attitude. I just have a hard time determining. And what's the benefit of sitting there, just obsessing about the why, trying to make reason or make sense out of something somebody else does? There's no benefit. And trying to determine why people do what they do, it's just tiring. It's going to wear you out. I also just heard this quote said, Satan's not going to take you out. He's going to wear you out. And oh man, that hit so hard. He will wear you out, trying to obsess, trying to figure it out, trying to think what's wrong. What did we do wrong? Where did I go wrong? Why doesn't he do this? Why doesn't he do that? He's wearing you out. There's literally no benefit. It's just practicing releasing it We just need, whenever we're stuck on something, we're obsessing about something, Satan's wearing us out, and we just need to just practice releasing it. Not today, Satan. If someone doesn't love you, it's okay. That person was meant to teach you something. One night on a business trip, I had dinner by myself at the hotel. I was sitting at the bar, so I had 3 glasses of wine. And I went up to my room, and I was kind of buzzed, obviously, sent a little drunk text to an ex. Gee. We weren't that serious. We had lots of fun, several dates. This was Mr. Fun Guy. And I don't know, I think we dated for a couple months. I don't know. But he did ghost me after a while. So I had already gone out with someone else, a couple dates with someone else, but it was because I wasn't focused on the lessons, and I was obsessed about trying to figure things out. I was focusing on the past. So 6 months and 3 glasses of wine later, it all of a sudden bothered me how he had just dropped off the face of the earth. And it's funny how it didn't bother me when I was sober. Note to self. The last time I had talked to him before this night, he was getting ready for a party, and he asked me about the type of belt he should wear. And I was like, it's just a belt. Like, it doesn't really matter that much. And he made a joke about the belt being a crucial decision because image was at stake. And even though he was kind of joking, I was like, your image really is important. And he was like, oh, image is everything. And I know he was mostly joking, but I was like, nah, really? No, it's not. And he was totally joking. But then again, he was never serious. So that's the part that made him super fun. But as the part that I knew that he wasn't my soulmate. Nonetheless, 6 months later, I'm texting him and asking what happened. And I just, out of the blue, said, why did you just drop off the face of the earth? I didn't want to date him. I just wanted to know what made him ghost me and never want to talk to me again, which is exactly what I had done to others. Hello. Like attracts like. Karma's only a bitch if you're a bitch. And surprisingly, he actually wrote me back. I couldn't believe it. The next morning, he replied one word at first. He said, hi. I'm like, hi. Then the next text, he said, because that's what I do. I'm like, genius. First of all, I was so excited that someone actually answered the question and was honest with me. And all I could think was like, God, thank you. Thank you for telling me the truth. Most people won't do that. It's just what I do. And so if you're obsessing and wondering and you can't let something go, it's just what they do. It's not personal. It has nothing to do with you personally. And so it's so ingrained in me that belief that every man was a liar. And I was like, not every man is a liar. He actually told me the truth. And at that moment on the road in Sacramento, California, I realized that the answer doesn't matter at all. People are just going to do whatever they do. And it's not your job. It's not your fault. It's not personal. It's not your job to figure out why anyone does what they do. You just get to learn from it. No matter how long or short a period of time that you knew them, you dated them, if you're not, you're just friends, you just get to learn. It's exciting. You can just be curious and save yourself so much turmoil. So fast forward a few years when I was focused on improving myself and attracting someone awesome, I realized that every person I'd ever dated who didn't love me and didn't want what I wanted, they taught me something extremely valuable. And I wrote down a huge list of lessons. I trained my mind to focus on the things that I had learned, all of the gifts that came out of every single relationship. And every single time I wrote something down, I just felt gratitude. Like, yay, I'm glad I had that experience with that one person. For every lesson on the list, I thanked God for putting that person in my life so I could learn that little bit of wisdom. I had that little lesson. And then I updated my soulmate list using each of those exact lessons because all of them put together showed me exactly what I wanted in a relationship. That one taught me that I wanted someone fun, someone funny, and childlike. I wanted someone to tell me the truth. I wanted a husband who also had a growth mindset and would engage in intelligent conversations. Like we could push each other to like grow instead of like just, hang out and party. But once you set down the desire to label dates as bad or good or people as bad or good, you're free. You're free to become wiser and wiser with every teacher, because you may not realize it, but you've learned so much from that ex-husband, ex-boyfriend, or both. But hating them and trying to understand and obsessing about what they did and why they did, it doesn't help you. Focusing on what you learned from them helps you immensely and gets you closer to your ultimate goal. So what if each of those lessons could only come from that one interaction with that one human being at that one point in your life, that one situation, that one relationship? That person may be the only one who could have taught us that specific lesson. That once we identify the lesson, we grow wiser. And what if we don't learn the lesson? The same one will come around again and again and again in a different man suit, as I like to call it. I was taught an amazing analogy. Think of it as if we're standing beside a stream and it goes in a circle like a lazy river. So when a lesson floats by and we don't grab it, it will just circle back around and here it comes again and we can try it again. Life will give us multiple chances to learn the same lesson, but some lessons are a little more painful than others. So what if we just try to understand them now and move on so we don't have to endure the pain over and over again? Does that sound good? But Karen, I didn't learn anything except for my ex-husband's an asshole. Okay. I'm sure you learned something besides that. Even if your ex-husband is an asshole, didn't you learn a few things that you don't want? No, I'm going to say. Okay, let's be real. I'm sure you learned something besides that. Didn't you learn a few things that you don't want in the future? It's very powerful to identify what you don't like. It makes it possible for you to identify what you do like and manifest what you want. Write in your journal the lessons you've learned from every person that you've gone on a date with. Write all the lessons you have learned from anyone you can remember who taught you something. If you have a good friendship that's not a romantic relationship, write down the lessons you learned from being around that person. One of my best friends and one of my few close male friends, I didn't really have a whole lot of male friends, but this is one of the closest friends I've ever had in my life. He was like hilarious. He was like, he made me laugh out loud, like spit in my drink, annoying everyone around us loud every time we were together. And me, I was always like changing my diet. You know, my kids were like gluten-free and then dairy-free and then dye-free. Then I was like, I had a peanut allergy. Then I went back to gluten-free. Then I thought it was fine. I was constantly changing what I was eating. And Charles would always just find the restaurant would work. He'd be like, all right, so what are we eating? What are we not eating? And then he'd find the restaurant that would accommodate me. When I was allergic to peanuts, he would tell the waiter, no peanuts can touch our dishes. And I could be a vegan one day. I could be a carnivore the next. And he didn't care. He didn't make me feel bad about it. He didn't make me feel weird. He just asked me what we were eating. And that minute, that day, whatever, he'd just go with it. I could be any weight. And even when I would gain weight, he'd be like, yeah, you're fat. But, you know, I love you anyway. And I was so comfortable around him. I could just be myself. And I learned just how to be myself around a man by spending time with my friend Charles. And I just love him. I adore him. My time spent with him was just the best time of my single life. And I realize now how precious that time is and how much he made me feel comfortable around myself, or can't make someone feel something. I felt comfortable. I felt so okay. I felt non-judged. I felt just completely accepted. He taught me unconditional love. And it wasn't romantic love. It was unconditional though. I could tell him anything. And by spending time with him, I was just able to refine so many things that I had on my soulmate list. Because Charles was so compassionate, so caring, so generous. And whenever he came across a homeless person, he always bought food. He bought them something. You know, he showed me that I wanted to show more compassion and take more action and help people in need. And I wanted to feel comfortable and supported regarding like my desires and my choices. So with him, I was allowed to make any choices about anything. And he'd support me 100%, absolutely no judgment. And to me, at that time of my life, that was such a gift and such a miracle and such a blessing, because I had never experienced that before. But what I know now is that as we become more comfortable with ourselves, as we grow our self-worth and we don't feel as judged. We're releasing that belief that people are judging us. But both are true. He set the stage for me to be comfortable with myself and be myself. And I wanted my soulmate to have that same frequency, that same feeling where I'm totally okay just being myself. And I wanted my soulmate to support whatever I wanted to try, or whatever I wanted to not eat, or whatever I wanted to eat, or whatever. I really wanted to experience like as much as possible. And I wanted to laugh and laugh with my soulmate until our sides hurt and tears were rushing down our faces. Just like I did with Charles, it helps me visualize those same circumstances, those same experiences, that same feeling that I wanted in my soulmate. I was able to identify them just by spending so much time with my friend Charles. And now that's exactly what I have with my husband. That is my reality right now. So this is just a process. It's an ongoing practice. And all of these lists, they need to just be read daily. So you're reminding yourself, you're repeating yourself. Your mind learns by repetition. And so you need to update it whenever you think of something to add or take out. Changing your beliefs is a process. And you can only go through yourself, and no one can do it for you. Focusing on what you've learned helps you build that belief that things, even difficult things, are actually happening for you and not to you. And practicing gratitude helps you realize that. And practice gratitude for everything you've learned because of every experience you've gone through. That's how you learned it. It's not in spite of everything you've gone through. It's because of every experience you've gone through. Those experiences were gifts. Every experience is the way we learn that lesson. The more you practice feeling grateful for the lessons and experiences, the faster you'll believe your new empowering beliefs that attract your soulmate to you. The limiting negative past beliefs, they no longer apply. So there are two ways you can look at it. Oh, Karen, I have to do this all by myself and no one else can cure me into creating new beliefs. It's going to be hard. Why do I have to do all this work? It's better to say that out loud, like Eeyore impersonation, like shoulders slumped over, woe is me for good measure. I'm just kidding. But you don't have to do any of this, but you can choose the way that you see these things and this strategy and this guide that I'm giving you. You can decide that you get to, because you can decide that it could be fun, and you could look at it like, I can change my beliefs and I can have control over my beliefs and I can change them. I can transform. I'm growing. I'm always evolving. It's so fun. I'm creating new neural pathways, and I love change. I get to live another day to transform and evolve and get better. And you can be grateful for the lessons. And I'm so grateful that I don't have to depend on anyone else to transform myself and grow and learn and evolve. And I'm so excited that I'm attracting real love right now. And doing these exercises will make me a magnet for real love, and pop the cork on the champagne because transforming beliefs is a celebration. So which one feels better? And frankly, you don't have to do any of this alone. This is where hypnotherapy can help. So cool, because when I wrote this book, I was not an RTT therapist, but now I am. Hypnotherapy, and specifically RTT, rapid transformational therapy, it helps you access the subconscious mind. And then you understand the root cause of those beliefs, and it helps you release them. So we can release them in the session, and then you install your new beliefs on the subconscious level and really work to strengthen those. RTT helps speed up the process, and it offers relief from your suffering. The suffering is caused by the beliefs that are stuck in your subconscious, and it helps you transform your beliefs faster. But if you don't want to do hypnotherapy and you want to do it alone, you still can. I didn't have a coach, and that's why I became one. In your own journey, wherever you are, avoid other people's negative beliefs about relationships at all costs. Your journey and your growth and your transformation and your mission, they're just too important. And you can't let anyone take you off course. Avoiding negativity protects your beliefs and your dreams and help you keep on track to accomplish what you want to accomplish, what's important to you. The people you surround yourself with the most affect you way more than you might realize. If you pay close attention to what people say and how they affect your beliefs about relationships, you may realize that you're spending too much time with others who don't believe in forever love. I found that limiting the time spent with people who don't have the relationship like I want strengthened my beliefs that what I wanted was possible. And not spending time with people who constantly said negative things about relationships also strengthened my beliefs. So if you spend high quantity time with people who don't have a relationship you admire, you're spending time focusing on what you don't want instead of what you do want. So if you ask for relationship advice from anyone not currently in a loving, long-term, healthy relationship, they may not be able to give you the advice that will help you. If they are upset or miserable or going through a hard time in their relationship, they could influence you to believe that all married couples end up miserable or all married couples end up divorcing or any of those beliefs that you do not want to strengthen, you do not want to have. They're not going to serve you at all. So only get advice from people that have what you want. You become who you surround yourself with. And it's not a new concept. I'm sure you've heard it before. But just think about it. If you were trying to lose weight, it's much easier if you don't spend high quantity time with friends who are always trying to convince you to go out for drinks and order pizzas and get a bottle of wine and, let's go get fries. It's so much easier if you just limit the time that you spend with people who have habits that you don't want to strengthen and you're really trying to improve and you want to change. If you were trying to get fit, well, you wouldn't hire a trainer that was not fit himself. If you're not doing it, you don't have the moral authority if you're not doing it yourself. If you're trying to acquire wealth, you wouldn't take advice from someone who had not already acquired wealth. And yet, sometimes we ask our single friends for dating advice, right? Okay, well, suppose your girlfriend just got separated from her husband, as an example. Maybe a couple months ago, she's going through a custody battle, she's hurting, she's in pain. In that case, she may not be the best person to spend all of your extra time with in order to strengthen your positive beliefs about relationships, because she's going through trauma. She's doing the best her can. She's in survival mode. I mean, she's barely making through it right now. But Karen, she's my only friend, and she listens to me bitch about my ex-husband for hours. Okay. Always ask yourself, how is it helping you? We need to talk. We need people around us who have gone through similar situations. That's one way that helps us heal. I had an excellent talk therapist when I went through my divorce. You can get a therapist, fantastic, highly recommend it if you have one that you trust and it really helps you to talk. And at the same time, if you can identify those around you who are more often than not expressing negativity around relationships or are currently in a toxic marriage, decrease the time you spend with them. You'll help strengthen the beliefs that you want to strengthen, and you will help yourself feel better. You're helping yourself and your mind believe and learn that true love is possible for you. And you can love your friends without spending all your time with them. So if they take you off your game, just keep a little distance from them for a while. Love them from afar. You'll both be just fine. It's not forever. You never have to see him ever again. That's not what I'm saying. Decrease the time you spend. Okay, part 5, focusing on the relationships that you admire. Another strategy is to surround yourself with the physical manifestations of real love relationships. So you can see with your very own eyes and constantly remind yourself that such thing is possible. The more time you spend with people who have what you want, the more you'll reinforce and protect your belief that real love is possible. The definition of focus is to pay particular attention to. Whenever I had lunch with my dear friend Dudon, still my dear friend, she always talked about her husband, and I would always cry. One time she told me that she was really sick and she couldn't sleep. So in the middle of the night, instead of sleeping, her husband, Josh, got up in the middle of the night, got some medicine for her, set up the neti pot thing for her, stayed up, helping her until she should go back to sleep. He didn't go back to sleep until she went back to sleep. And I love being with her because she had what I wanted so desperately. I was kind of crying because obviously it was beautiful. It was such a beautiful relationship. And I also was sad because that's what I wanted. But listening to those stories while I was single helped me strengthen my belief that a marriage like hers was possible for me. Josh's main purpose in life is to take care of his wife. Isn't that incredible? Well, I didn't believe that that was true for a long time. And it may be tricky if you've only focused on the relationships that you'd never want. Because when we're single, we tend to attract other singles because like attracts like. We have a lot more single friends sometimes. We also tend to attract people who are unhappy in relationships. And it might seem prevalent because that was your old focus. And it's easy to find the physical manifestations of your current situation because you've been focused on that specific current situation. So you find it everywhere. But when you change your focus and pay particular attention to where you want to go instead, it'll become easier to find the physical manifestations of the great marriages and healthy relationships that you admire and that you really want. The more you focus on real love and finding it in your own life, the faster you can transform into believing that real love is possible for you. One thing is for certain, believing that real love is not possible will not help you. And thinking that real love is not possible will not help you feel good either. We have to do something different in order to believe that finding true love is happening. Change is uncomfortable, but it's not impossible. But visualizing alone wasn't enough to help me believe that a man out there would love me exactly the way I was, or that I would love him just as much. Visualizing alone wasn't enough to make me believe there was one man for me who would be awesome and talented and handsome and who could keep up with me and love me. Visualizing is only one piece of the puzzle. Your core beliefs will only change after you take daily action and become particular in choosing the people with whom you spend the most time. I practice shifting my thoughts over and over and directing my focus to existing real love marriages. My core beliefs changed when I only focused on those couples who had the kind of relationship that I wanted, had long been married, and who loved each other deeply. Suppose you truly desire a husband to be your best friend and closest confidant and to love you unconditionally. In that case, it's not going to help you to focus on or think about anyone in a toxic relationship or one that you don't admire. You can be there for your single friends. You can be there for your friends who are struggling in relationships, but you need to distance yourself from anyone negative about attracting real love. You need to distance yourself from anyone with a negative view of anything in life you want to accomplish. Maybe you want to be successful and have a house on the beach, but you have a friend who looks at homes on the beach with disdain for those who own them. Like, who do they think they are? You know, in that case, you could manifest that home on the beach much faster by distancing yourself from that person with negative views about it, or just by not bringing up that subject around that person. The same holds true for attracting real love. Any friends of yours who complain about their husbands, who complain about men, who complain about being single, just keep your distance from them. You can be friends with someone without spending a ton of time with them. You become like the people with whom you surround yourself. If you're around negative people, you'll have a much harder time changing your own beliefs to those that will bring you in line with what you truly want. I have the honor and privilege of knowing and working with my two friends, Reed and Sabrina, whose marriage I have admired for almost 30 years now. They've been married almost 40 years. And as a side note, I'm actually interviewing her. So I will have the interview of her on how to create amazing marriages. She has the moral authority. She is amazing. And she's been married 40 years. So look for my podcast for that. Sabrina Porter. I watched them intently over the last 3 decades because I wanted to learn from the couples that had the relationship like the one I envisioned having and the one that I wanted. And they met in high school. And I used to think that it was a miracle that they had been happily married since. Now I know it's not a miracle, but it's an ongoing commitment to their marriage. And we talk about it every time we talk to each other. Every time we see each other, we talk about marriage. Now, anyone can just stay married and, not get a divorce. But what astonishes me the most is that these two are true partners in every sense of the word. They're best friends. They're each other's biggest supporters. They work together. They're incredibly driven. They're successful in business. They lead extremely busy lives, yet they prioritize and enjoy spending time with each other. Even after 4 decades, even after sharing the same office for years and years and years. They love going skiing as a family. And Sabrina recently had an accident and she broke her hip, actually. She told me that Reed was the only person she would allow to help her because he was so deliberate and so careful. And he was the only person that she trusted. And I'll never forget the story she told me decades ago. When they were about to be married, her mother gave her this advice. I know her mom too, and she's a doll. Now, you know the man is the head of the household, but the woman is the shoulders. The wife steers the husband. And to that, Sabrina replied, well, Mom, I don't know how to break it to you, but we're going to be a two-headed monster. That's so funny. I love that. If it's possible for a two-headed monster to remain in a loving, committed relationship all these years, then it's possible for all of us. I wrote the names of couples I knew whom I admired. I listed the couple's names who have had a relationship that I truly desired. And then I described in detail exactly what it was about each relationship that I loved and admired for my visualization. I spent time with those couples if I could. I was asking questions if I knew them well enough. Like my granny and pa. I wrote down everything about my granny and pa because they were so much in love for over 60 years, not exactly how many years. But she lived to be 89 and my pa was 98. Unfortunately, they were no longer with us when I got a divorce. So I held their memories in my mind as much as I could. And when my granny died, my pa looked at her body. She died at home and he stood over her and he said, now what am I going to do? And this massive, rock solid, giant, healthy Superman pa of mine, he followed after her. He just passed away 6 months later of a broken heart. There was nothing wrong with him. I mean, he was 98 years old. He didn't have any problems at all. No health problems. He just didn't want to be on earth without her. It was so beautiful. They adored each other. They used to hold hands everywhere they went. They would sit on the couch and hold hands. They'd watch the Lawrence Welk show at 8,000 decibels. And their entire marriage, my pa would come home every single day at lunchtime and he'd eat lunch with my granny and then he'd take a nap. Then he'd go back out to work. And he lived to be 98. It's just, I think he was onto something with this lunch and nap thing. I've always thought that. It's brilliant. But I wanted that. It had been on my list even before I even had a soulmate list. It was on my list. I just wanted what they had. And I watched them intently when I was younger. I saw how they talked to each other, how warm they were, how sweet they were, how they looked at each other, how much they laughed together. That was real love. That was commitment. And I studied their traits and habits and those of all of the couples that I admired. I added things to my soulmate list as I observed other couples around employees, clients, children, whatever. The more time I spent with couples that I admired, the more my belief muscles grew. And I grew to believe that I could have a relationship like theirs. I grew to believe that I was lovable just the way I was. I also grew to believe that one man would not only put up with me, but he would celebrate that I was passionate and stubborn and determined. And he'd adore me and cherish me, not in spite of my personality, but because of it. And John does love me entirely. He's just as much of a type A as I am. And he looked up our horoscope when we first got together. It was pretty funny. It said that we're basically doomed for eternal conflict and competition, which makes sense. We're both driven. We're both natural leaders. We both have strong opinions. But in our relationship, we decided that if something is really important to one of us, then that's what's happening. You know, my good friend had invited us to his 50th birthday weekend adventure. They had chosen Napa. It was a few years ago. And John just really didn't want to go. He's not a Napa guy. He's not a wine guy. But I hadn't seen my friends in like over a decade because they moved away. And I really wanted to see them. And he kept pushing back when I brought it up. And he doesn't like wine. It was like a 3-day wine tasting trip through a dozen vineyards. There was nothing else except for wine for 3 days with 0 people that he knows. Now, granted, I only knew those 2. There's a whole bunch of people that I didn't know either. And so one day I just said, honey, this is just really important to me. I'd really like for us to go and be with my friends. And that was it. He just looked at me and was like, oh, okay. I didn't realize that. That was it. when he tells this story, he adds that he was also thinking, why didn't you just say that from the beginning? Good point. Oh yeah. And why do you still have your clothes on? I just made that part up. Just kidding. We booked the trip. We had a blast. It was so much fun. And when it's real love, he loves you when you're at your worst. He sees everything about you. He loves you anyway. And this was completely foreign to me. At the very beginning, before I even lived with John, I was having a really rough day. I was about to start my period. I was trying to save an account. Things were not going well. It was my biggest account. Everything was a dumpster fire. So we were preparing for our meeting. We were trying to convince them to, still hire, keep us on as their marketing, firm. And everything was on fire. So I was working with a new artist who wasn't producing what I wanted. I was freaking out. I was very upset. And that night, I just sat on his bed and I just started to cry. I couldn't even hold it in, which I was very surprised that I was doing this. We hadn't been together very long. He sat down beside me and he just put his arm around me. He just consoled me, hugged me, asked what he could do to help. And he just told me that even if I did lose this account, it didn't matter. And he wants to take the pain and stress from me. He wants to help. And isn't that what we all want? And I had never experienced this type of relationship before. So just work on your list just a little every day, just because it needs to be updated anytime you experience, something new, you learn something new, and your beliefs can either align you with your dreams or they kick you out of alignment. So the truth about being out of alignment, I don't know if you've ever been misaligned in your tires. I know I haven't. Is that it could just be fixed. You can always get back in alignment. I don't know if you have the same experience with curbs that I do, but they jump out at you all over town and your wheels just might need an alignment occasionally. It's literally a running joke at my husband's dealership that I need an alignment every single month. Actually, he bought me bigger tires, so now I don't need an alignment every single month. Those curbs are outrageous, though. Am I right? But getting back into alignment is super easy. It really doesn't take that much time at all. And I find this to be true with our thoughts and beliefs, too. If you have a disappointing day, rough day, you're struggling to believe that real love is possible, just use these tools to get back into an alignment, back on that road to what you love and what you want and what you desire most. Because your old beliefs are wrong. You've already proven that those are not true. And you can read and reread your notes with all the facts about what is true and what is possible in your reality now. And in this way, you remember the truth, get back in alignment. And find the people in your life who have real amazing love and have long been married. Go see them. Spend time with people and those couples that you admire and see how they interact. Build your belief that it's real, it's true, it's possible. And you can forget those stupid romantic movies if they make you sad and make you feel bad. You're going to need more than a fake romance movie to get you closer to your goal. Those movies are carefully scripted for brilliant actors. It's not real life, and it's not your script. It's someone else. Now, you can get some ideas about who you really like in a partner from watching some movies if they don't make you feel bad, but pay close attention to how you feel when you watch anything. If the movie shows you something that you really want, great, cool, add it to your list. But if you become upset and sad just from watching a movie or watching some romance or whatever, please turn it off. It's not worth it. Because everything you watch and read and listen to affects your ability to stay in alignment with your dreams. Consume all media with extreme caution. Your goals and the work you're putting into attract real love, your goals and the work you're putting into yourself and transforming yourself and attracting real love is your mission. Napoleon said, "I only see my objective. All obstacles must give way." And I love that because you think about how the hell did he do all of that stuff? Well, he didn't see obstacles. They must give way. I only see the end result. He's talking about just focusing on the end result. If my inner bitch tried to creep in and say, all men suck, it'll never happen for you, I would listen to my love playlist, more on that later, I would read my notes. I would journal. I would read through my list of all the amazing marriages that I've seen and witnessed with my own eyes. If it can be true for those couples, it can be true for anyone. I also put those notes in my phone. So when something happened that would make it appear that I was destined to be alone forever, I would read my notes. I recorded them in my voice note memos, and I would play them while I drove around, bumping curbs and all. Okay, review. This is when you create your mantra. Identify all of the current limiting negative beliefs about yourself, about men, about relationships, and then write down all of the lessons you learned by spending time with every single person you've dated, either friendships, romantic or not, no matter how long. Write down all the lessons. And then you're going to remember to have gratitude for all the lessons, all the people in your life that have taught you something. Read them all the time to remind you all of the good that came from the past. And then really want to limit spending any high quantity time with people who don't have what you want or who are negative about what you are creating and what you want. And don't ask advice from anyone who doesn't have the relationship that you want. Just don't get advice from them. You can still be friends. Don't get relationship advice from someone unless they have the relationship that you want. And study the habits and traits of people in committed, loving relationships that you admire, that you resonate with, because we're all different. And spend time, as much time as you can with those people.